speak?
Hello, hello.
Okay. Let me get my Kindle open. You should do another art fight attack while I read to you.
Fine.
Yeah, you're gonna find a hot boy. Find an artist that you want to possibly revenge you. Because you'll get higher chances if you do art for them first.
No,
What?
talking to myself.
Alright. What happened last?
Um, more sillies,
Yes?
and then
With
yeah,
who? Who was involved? We were
Hua
literally just
Chung.
talking about this.
Yeah, Hua Chung was trying to endure Mei Namjing, which is silly. Because he still was harassing the poor man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Junwoo um, was heading back to Shilian's place, so they had to book it and leave. Um, and they were able to. Rainmaster was able to distract him a little bit, um, so that they could get there in time. And Shilian pretended to be sleeping while Huachang was behind the curtains.
Yeah.
And Junwoo was insinuating that he knows that he was out and about and snuck someone into heaven. And did he say he wanted to show him something? Is that what he said?
Yeah. So he was Hua Chung was hiding behind the curtain, and then Junwoo walks in. He's like, "You, I could tell that you've been out, and you have someone with you." And then he pulls back the sheets on Shilian, and Shilian is wearing the brocade immortal. And he's like, "Where's Ling Wen?" And Shilian's like, "I'm not gonna fucking tell you." And then Hua Chung ends up in his bed, and they're like hiding. And then Junwoo's like, "Come with me." So Shilian follows him, and then they walk to Pei Ming's palace. And on the way, Chi Rong is being a freak, like he does, and Guzza is there. And then he gets punched, and then he gets sent off to do his errands. And then they show up at Pei Ming's house, and Chemo is there, Banyu is there, Pei Shu is there, Xuanji is there, and then Mingguang, Rongguang is the Mingguang sword is there. And they all are like entangled and fucking fighting each other in a cartoon way. And then Jinwoo walks in, and they all fall to the ground except for like Pei Ming. And Pei Ming's like, "Okay, thank you." And then Jinwoo is like, "If you go and fuck up the array down in the capital, I'll reinstate you as god of the north." And Pei Ming is like, "Well, I can't do that by force." And then Jinwoo's like, "You don't have to do it by force." And then Shilian's like, "Oh my god, he could just go down there and be like, Shi Ching Xuan, let me in," and then fuck it up. So that's where that ends. So that ends. It would actually be very easy for Pei Ming to break the array, as Shi Ching Xuan would surely let him in as long as he pretended to be there to help. After he entered, he could ruin it in an instant if he left the circle without warning, and Hua Chung wouldn't be able to fix it, because he wasn't actually guarding the royal holy capital right now. Oh my god, Scout is barking. Alright, chapter 121. Coiling and encircling silver butterflies and blessing lantern's shield. General Pei, that array is defending the capital against the vengeful spirits that poured out of the kiln, Shilian explained. There will be a third outbreak of human face disease if it's broken, and a third outbreak would bring disaster to the world. It might annihilate all living things. Pei Ming rubbed his nose. Let me verify one thing. My lord is giving me no other choice, right? Of course I am providing a choice, Junwu said. If you descend, I will let you go. If you do not, I will let them go. Who was them? Xuanji, Rongguang, and Kimo. A green, hungry glint flashed in the three ghosts' eyes. It was easy to imagine what they would do to Pei Ming once they were set loose. Strangle him to death, scratch him to death, stab him to death, punch him to death. Choose one or all of the above. Little Pei is also here, Junwu added. I presume you think very highly of your descendant, after all. After all, when he was discovered luring people to their deaths at Banyue Pass, you were willing to cover up his crimes to keep him in the heavens. You even planned to pin the blame on another. This reminder made Rongguang's grievances well up anew. He furiously cursed Pei Ming for being a terrible friend and valuing his great-great-great-great-great-grandson over his brothers in arms. Xuanji grumbled and griped about her own grievances from the side. Pei Ming endured all the demonic noise swarming around his head, and after much thought he sighed. Will my lord allow me to think more on this? My patience is limited, so I don't care to give you too much time, Junwu said. Why do I always get a fucking pop-up when I open my computer? As soon as he spoke, delight appeared on the three ghosts' faces. They could move now, and in an instant they pounced. The gates of the palace of Mingguang closed. Shilian could hear someone's tortured screams from inside, and the sound of ripping and tearing. His face dropped, and he cried, General Pei! Banyue! Although he wanted to go back inside to check on them, Junwu's hand on his shoulder dragged him away, and steered him to the other end of the street. Shilian kept looking back, but he had no say where he went. What are you planning? He cried angrily. Next, Junwu said. Next? What was next? They walked for another stretch before stopping once more. Shilian's breath nearly stopped when he saw Lan Qinchou's palace of Taihua. Qirong sauntered over from the opposite end of the street with Geza tucked under his arm. He looked refreshed and rejuvenated, and very satisfied with himself for having trampled all the major divine palaces. Why did you call me over? He asked. Junwu had actually summoned Qirong to the palace of Taihua. A sense of foreboding seized Shilian. Oh, that's Shilian's beat. There's nothing to concern yourself with here. Leave now, he scolded. Qirong's face fell, but before he could snap at Shilian, Junwu gave an order. Go inside. And just as quickly, Qirong was smiling smugly once more. Your words don't matter round these parts. And then he strutted inside the palace of Taihua, with his head raised and his spirits high. Lan Qinchou was pacing back and forth inside the palace, with his hands behind his back, his face dark and gloomy. When he saw that Shilian and Junwu had come, he demanded suspiciously, What are you doing here? He then saw Qirong behind them, and his face changed color in an instant. You! He cried angrily. Geza shrank away in the face of his angry roar, but Qirong certainly wasn't afraid of him right now. He sat down cross-legged on a chair outside the hall, jiggling one leg, so cocky that he was drunk on it. Nothing to fear, my good son. That's right, it's me. Lan Qinchou, haven't you been hunting me down, hoping to kill me for so long? And yet you still fell into my clutches in the end. Lan Qinchou was outraged. Veins popped on his forehead and on the backs of his hands, yet he was locked within his palace and couldn't take a single step outside. He turned to Shilian furiously. What the hell are you doing? Did you bring him here just to show off? No, Shilian cried. Calm down. I am calm, Lan Qinchou exclaimed. I don't even know what's going on. Junwu issued the terms of his order. Taihua, descend and break the human array in the royal capital. Do so, and I will hand over your enemy, the green ghost Qirong, for you to manage. Qirong laughed wildly. Lan Chincho, you Yong'an dumbass! Huh? What did you say? Hand me over? What do you mean? He'd cackled for a good while before he processed Junwoo's words. But when he did, he leapt directly to his feet. What a joke. Hand him over to Lan Chincho. He'd murdered the entire Long clan. Lan Chincho would slaughter him. Junwoo didn't acknowledge him whatsoever, just continued to speak leisurely. Otherwise, I will hand you over to be managed by the green ghost Chi Rong, and another life can be added to the list of Yong'an royalty who died by his hand. Lan Chincho's face was growing darker and more terrifying, and Chi Rong cried, "Wait!" Shilian couldn't take this anymore. "Are you mad?" he cried. "Why are you forcing them to make such choices? What are you trying to show me?" Lan Chincho had been hunting Chi Rong down to kill him, and considering Chi Rong's character, of course he'd pounce on an opportunity to eliminate Lan Chincho first. But if Lan Chincho really did choose to set out and break the human array, well, Shilian definitely did not want to see that. "And if you do not want to watch them make such decisions, then why not take their place?" Junwoo asked. "What?" Shilian gaped. "Shenle, all of this is the result of your stubborn caprice." Is that how you pronounce that? Caprice? Junwoo said, "If you had followed my direction from the start, they would not have to face these choices now." "Are you saying this is my fault?" Shilian was so angry his voice was shaking. "Why must you force all of this on me?" "Do you hate me?" Junwoo asked. "Hatred alone is pointless. Defeat me if you have what it takes. But do you?" Shilian clenched his fists tight, his knuckles cracking. "Naturally you do not at the moment," Junwoo continued. "But you might become able of the feat if you break the human array. If you break it, I will remove those 2 shackles on your body." The 2 cursed shackles had sealed his power over 800 years. What would happen if he was released from their fetters? Anxiety ramping high, Chi Rong stared cautiously into the palace of Taihua, scared that Lan Chincho would choose to break the array at any moment, and he'd be left in the lurch, doomed to be snuffed out. Lan Chincho's eyes darted rapidly between Shilian and Chi Rong. Suddenly, Junwoo's hand on Shilian's shoulder loosened. Shilian jolted and whipped his head back. Junwoo's expression was calm and cold, his chin slightly lowered, to inspect the curved silver blade that was hooked around his neck. Ming's blade. Behind him, Hua Cheng's eyes flashed with animosity. "Move your hand," he said frostily. "San Lang!" Shilian cried. Hua Cheng had followed after all. Junwoo breathed in, then smiled at Shilian. "Shenle, you dared to have an affair with the Ghost King right under my nose. What audacity." Hua Cheng scoffed. "Why don't you take a look in the mirror? Do you have the right to say anything on the subject?" Chi Rong hadn't even settled in his chair before he leapt up again, his face changing into a rainbow of terrified colors. "Dog Hua Cheng! How did you get up here?" Shilian unsheathed Fangshin from where it hung on his waist and swung, cutting through the barrier that was locking Lan Chincho inside. "Chincho, run!" However, Lan Chincho was still burning with rage, and he charged toward Chi Rong to seize him. He grabbed the greatsword on his back, looking like he was going to chop Chi Rong into half a dozen pieces. But Geza hopped down from Chi Rong's shoulders and opened his arms in front of him to shield him. Don't kill my dad!" he cried out to Lan Chincho. "Move! Your dad is possessed, and he's not even your dad," Lan Chincho shouted back at him. Seizing the opportunity, Chi Rong flipped out of his grip and leapt away, catching Geza as he did. "Don't come any closer! I'm warning you. Don't come near me. Do it and I'll chomp this kid to death. I'll rip him open and devour his guts right in front of you." Lan Chincho stopped, then yelled angrily. "Isn't he your son? He protected you, and you still treat him as nothing but a shield? You despicable, dirty ghost trash!" Caught in Chi Rong's grip, Guzzo was blinking in confusion. "A cheap son? I'll just sire another one," Chi Rong countered. "If that's the case," Junwoo said lightly. Hearing his tone, Shilian instinctively sensed danger. Sure enough, he soon heard surprised shouting from outside the palace. "Fire! There's a fire! Everything's burning up! Shilian rushed out of the palace of Taihua to look. Night was falling, but the heavenly capital skies were flaming red above a sea of fire. Many palaces had already been overtaken by the blaze. Whirling back around, Shilian demanded, "What are you doing? Setting fire to the heavenly capital? All the heavenly officials are still locked inside their palaces on your orders." They'd also had their spiritual powers sealed. If this situation was allowed to continue, wouldn't they all burn to death in their own palaces? "It's not like he cares whether they're alive or dead," Hua Cheng said. Lan Chenchou was shocked too, and Qi Rong seized the opportunity. He tucked Geza under his arm and fled, crawling and scuttling as he went. "Stop!" Lan Chenchou cried, as if Qi Rong would do any such thing. "Chinchou!" Shilian yelled. "Go free the other heavenly officials first!" "Yes, master!" Lan Chenchou answered on reflex. They both paused. Lan Chenchou gave Shilian a look before dashing out. As he withdrew Ming's blade, Hua Cheng summoned a whirling storm of silver butterflies. The 1,000-strong swarm wrapped Junwu in a chrysalis. Hua Cheng grabbed Shilian's hand and pulled. "Let's go." The silver butterflies wouldn't hold Junwu for long. The two ran off into the street and saw that Lan Chenchou had already knocked down a great number of guards. Many of the heavenly officials had been released from their palaces and were pouring onto the grand avenue of divine might. Their panic was palpable. "Why is everything burning? Who set a fire?" "It's not a normal fire. It can't be extinguished." From a distance, they could still hear Qi Rong howling as he fled. "Fuck, fuck, fuck! Shenwu, that motherfucker, he's gone crazy! This ancestor is still here! He's really fucking nuts if he's setting his own domain on fire!" Feng Xin had come out of the palace of Nanyang and seemed to be looking for someone as he stood on the main street. From one side, Mu Qing asked, "How do we leave?" But there was no way to leave. "Can we fly?" "Everyone's injured and their spiritual powers is still restricted. We can't fly out of here." So even though everyone had been released from their palaces, they were still trapped in the sea of fire that had overtaken the heavenly capital. Just then, a wild tremor shook the ground, and the officials began to panic. "What's going on? An earthquake?" "How can that be?" Lan Chenchou shouted. "This is the heavenly capital. It's a city in the sky. How can there be earthquakes?" "Then what?" Any further comments died in the officials' throats. A long moment later, they began to point at something. "What is that thing?" someone mumbled. Beneath the fire-lit sky, a giant head had appeared at the end of the long main avenue of the heavenly capital. It was staring at the hundreds of heavenly officials on the street. The head was truly enormous, many times the size of a golden palace, and furthermore, it was smiling. Although it was a very peaceful and benevolent smile, it looked quite sinister against the backdrop of the endlessly dark night and blood-red flames. Someone clutched at their head. "Am I hallucinating? His Highness is so big." It was the giant divine statue, and it had flown to the heavens. Shilian was dumbfounded. Wasn't that divine statue supposed to be lying dormant in Mount Tonglu territory? And it shouldn't have been able to fly without him at the controls. How had it gotten here without his commands or any spiritual power? Then Shilian noticed that the giant divine statue was surrounded by glittering, sparkling lights, stark against the blackness of the night. Looking closer, he discovered that the light wasn't coming from the statue itself, but from the millions of silver butterflies and blessing lanterns that wreathed it from head to toe. The silver butterflies and blessing lanterns had flown it to the heavens. That's the end of that chapter. Do you want me to do another?
Yeah, do another.
Chapter 122, Turning the World Upside Down, Battling the Fiery Demonic Fortress in the Sky. The giant divine statue rose higher and higher under the gaze of countless stunned, dumbfounded eyes. Shilian saw that it was in perfect condition, completely undamaged. There was no trace of the broken leg White No-Face had inflicted. "Sanlang, you fixed it?" he exclaimed with delight. Hua Cheng flashed a smile. "I couldn't possibly come to the heavens to pick Gugga up empty-handed. Let's go." Shilian nodded. "Everyone, hurry and get on." But that was when the crowd of heavenly officials finally saw that Hua Cheng was the one standing beside him. They almost fell to their knees. "Your Highness, the man next to you is—" The furrow between Feng Xin's brows was growing deeper and deeper in distress, and he finally started calling out, "Jianlan! Jianlan!" No one responded. Lan Chinchou spotted Shirong sneaking about and hiding in corners. He was about to go seize him when, with a great rumbling boom, the palace of Taihua collapsed as he passed by, like something inside had exploded. When the heavenly officials turned in shock to look, they saw a figure standing there amidst the rubble and raging fire, head lowered and utterly silent. Zhenwu had broken free of the silver chrysalis. As expected, the silver butterflies couldn't stop him for long. Let me drink. Everyone and their fucking mother.
Yeah.
Qirong hastily scuttled behind Zhenwu, then shouted cockily at the crowd, "Garbage! Trash, all of you! Come over here if you've got what it takes." Only he was
He's a flip-flop.
only he was still foolish enough to approach, ignorant of his own impending demise. None of the heavenly officials even dared to speak. Black aura billowed and white light blinded, both colors radiating from the body of the martial god clad in white, ever-changing and unpredictable. The heavenly officials found this Zhenwu infinitely foreign, and they stared at him, not even daring to breathe too loudly. Zhenwu stared at Shilian intently, and slowly walked towards the gathering of gods. With every step, the flames of war sparked beneath his feet, lively little flames that were spreading madly in all directions, until they became a raging inferno that stormed through the heavens, just like the ghost at the bridge. The flames caught on to Shirong. Howling, he fled quickly with Geza in his arms. With a face covered in soot and Yin Yu's corpse on his back, Xuan Yizhen stood in the middle of the main avenue. When he saw Zhenwu, his eyes were also set alight by blazing fires of rage. He didn't even put the body down before stalking towards him, and Shilian had to pull him back. Getting close to Zhenwu right now would be courting death. Another wave of silver butterflies shot forth. Shilian used this chance to shout, "Hurry! Don't just stand there!" The heavenly officials hesitated for a moment. Then, finally, they acknowledged the order one by one. Like an army of black ants climbing aboard, hundreds of heavenly officials leapt onto the giant divine statue and crowded its shoulders and chest. When there were no more places to stand, they had to grab on to the hem of its robes. The giant divine statue couldn't depend on the blessing lanterns and silver butterflies to fly. But Shilian couldn't make a move on Huacheng with so many people around. But adversity breeds ingenuity. Shilian grabbed a random heavenly official and yanked them over to block the other's view while he cupped Huacheng's face and brought him in for a deep kiss.
Random guy. That's hilarious. Why would you do that?
There's
this random fucking guy.
There's a picture, but I'll fucking... Oh my god, I'll send it after.
Shit. Special.
Time passed, and Shilian's whole body was filled with spiritual power. The heavenly official...
it's filled with something else, too.
The heavenly official who had been used as a screen had gone completely stiff. "What are you two doing behind my back?" he cried in shock. Countless eyes focused on them. Only then did Shilian discover that the random official he had used to block the view was Lan Chinchou. What a sin! What a sin! This child mustn't witness such things, Shilian repented in his mind. "We've done nothing! Nothing you should see!" he exclaimed. Then he turned around and shouted at the divine statue, "Fly!" Upon hearing his command, the divine statue came to life. Its squinted eyes flashed open, and the smile on its face deepened. The silver butterflies and blessing lanterns scattered in an instant, but it still floated steadily in the sky. Its long hair, sleeves, and robes seemed to flutter in the wind. It was flying. Shilian and Huacheng leapt aboard and stood atop the jade crown platform on the divine statue's head. "Everyone keep steady! Hang on tight!" Shilian shouted. The body of the divine statue sank as he spoke. Then it shot forward with rumbling force, bringing wild, shrieking gales along with it. Shilian and Huacheng stood at the highest point of the divine statue and carried the countless heavenly officials away from the heavenly capital. Many of the officials had left years of savings behind in the capital, so they kept looking back, pounding their chests and stamping their feet in dejection and despair. Once he had regained some calm, Chilian remembered that there hadn't been time to take a head count amidst all the chaos. He had no idea whether Pei Ming and the others had met an unfortunate fate. Worried, he searched the crowd below for the few figures he was familiar with. "Master! General Pei, are you here?" "I'm here," the state preceptor's voice replied from a distance. Only then did Chilian relax, just a little. Just then, someone cried out, "It's gaining on us! It's gaining on us!" Pursuit
Oh,
was expected,
God.
and sure enough, something huge and bright red was chasing the giant divine statue, glowing with life-stealing light. It was the heavenly capital itself.
What?
The heavenly capital was normally wreathed in auspicious clouds, but now it was burning with the flames of war. It had transformed into a demonic, fiery fortress. "It's the Emperor," someone said in terror. "The Emperor is moving the heavenly capital. He's going to annihilate us all. He's going to catch up." "Not so fast," Chilian shouted. Oh my god, why is Scout barking so much? Hold on, I'm gonna go get her. Bubba. This bitch isn't even getting up from her bed to bark. She's just barking from her bed. Asshole.
She doesn't give a fuck.
She doesn't give a shit. She's just like, "Just so you know, there's a bird out there."
Like,
Alright.
okay, girl.
Let me drink.
Scared, always.
You should be.
Oh.
"Not so fast," Chilian shouted. His hand seals changed rapidly, and the giant divine statue's eyes flashed. The wind, whipping around the heavenly official's ears, howled harder and faster, and the red light chasing them fell away into the distance. The divine statue was now flying even faster. But the red light didn't give up so easily. With a great rumbling noise, its speed suddenly exploded. It was now even closer than before, and many of the heavenly officials cried out in alarm. At this distance, they could almost see the figure standing within the heavenly capital. Meanwhile, the people of the mortal realm had no idea what was happening. When laughing children at play saw a white light shooting across the sky, when laughing children at play saw a white light shooting across the sky with a red light in pursuit, their jaws dropped and they clapped in delight. Lights! So pretty! Chilian knew this couldn't go on for much longer. They had to speed up once more, but he was feeling slightly dizzy. He had been piloting the statue for so long, after all, and on a single breath. Huacheng helped him up, but before the two could exchange words, they heard the state preceptor yelling from below. "What are you all standing around for? A bunch of heavenly officials need to rely on the spiritual power of a ghost king to make their escape. Aren't you ashamed of yourselves?" Some heavenly officials didn't appreciate his tone and shot back, "Who are you? What right do you have to lecture us?" "It doesn't matter who I am," the state preceptor countered. "I was in the upper court when you were playing in a sandbox somewhere. Hurry up and place your precious little hands on this divine statue and give it all the spiritual power you have. That's the only way it'll fly faster. That is, unless you're waiting for him to catch up. Are you lot so used to watching from the sidelines that you've forgotten your lives are on the line? Do you need me to remind you?" That seemed to knock some sense into the heavenly officials. They had actually forgotten that they could lend their support that way. With a chorus of ashamed exclamations, they hurriedly got to work, pressing their hands to the divine statue. "Your Highness, I will, give you a hand." Me too, then." "There's not much, but I'll do what I can." 700 or 800 hands and feet poured spiritual power into the divine statue, filling it once more, and Chilian was re-energized. With a loud rumble, the divine statue powered up once again, and left the red light far, far behind. The heavenly officials sighed deeply in relief. each wiping away the sweat on their brows. Shilian was doing the same when Hua Cheng suddenly said, "Gaga, go lower." Since he had spoken up, Shilian didn't ask why. He immediately dipped downwards and broke through the layers of pitch-black clouds, only to find further darkness. Not even a bit of light or civilization could be seen. The heavenly officials were agitated. What is this place? Why is it so dark? It's quite frightening." "Your Highness, why did we come down here?" "I don't think we should stay long." Hua Cheng said firmly, "We will stay here, and we will not move. Let's wait." The giant divine statue thus floated in midair. What are we waiting for?" Shilian asked. "We're waiting for him to catch up, so we can make a stand," Hua Cheng whispered back. As soon as he spoke, a streak of red light broke through the blackened clouds, and the blazing heavenly capital sank down. The heavenly officials watched the red lights approach with unblinking eyes, chills running down their spines. They all began shouting questions at Shilian. "Your Highness, why aren't we leaving?" "You can't be thinking of fighting him head on. We've got no choice of winning." "He's gone stupid again. I just knew it. That guy loves being stupid. It's been hundreds of years and it's always been like, 'Hey, who kicked me?'" "Me," the state preceptor said. "Say one more word and I'll push you off instead." "Who are you?" The divine statue might have been huge, but the heavenly capital was even more majestic in stature. It would definitely crush the statue in a head-on battle. However, Shilian had complete trust in Hua Cheng's judgment, so he stayed silent and focused. Thus, one stone man and one city confronted each other in the cold night sky. When the red light was less than a quarter of a kilometer away, Shilian felt something stirring down below. When he looked down, he saw the darkness beneath his feet moving, splashing, rising, and folding in on itself. It was almost like waves. Suddenly, Shilian knew exactly where they were. Some other heavenly officials had also noticed, and someone exclaimed in terror, "My heavens! This is the Blackwater Demon's lair! We've been brought to a ghost den!" Just then several sharp white things broke through the darkness below and leapt into the air. 4 sets of eyes glowered at the fiery demonic fortress, huge haunting green eyes like ghost fire lanterns. As if highly displeased by the rude intruder, the eyes' owners let out long malicious howls and whipped their giant tails back and forth, slapping at the surface of the sea and stirring up thousands of tall waves. It was the 4 bone dragons. They raised their heads, opened their jaws, and blasted the demonic fortress with torrents of water from their mouths. The enormous water guns blasted with such immense power that they could have torn through iron walls. Shilian couldn't help but reevaluate his initial impression. The last time we saw them, they were a little... I didn't think they were so ferocious. More and more giant skeletal monsters broke through the pitch-black surface of the sea, and fish sailed through the air with whooshing noises like they were catapulting boulders at the fortress. The heavenly officials were completely confounded by the sight. Junwu was pursuing them with intent to kill, while Hua Cheng and Blackwater seemed to be helping them. It made a bizarre scene. The 4 bone dragons surrounded the demonic fortress and kept up their wild barrage, but it wasn't terribly effective. Mere water could hardly extinguish the raging flames of war. The fire only grew more and more furious after the fish bombardment, and it burned all the way down to the sea. The surface of the Blackwater demon lair became a raging inferno. Firelight danced wildly upon the water, while wails and howls sounded from the abyssal depths. Sweat rolled down Shilian's forehead. Is it okay that we made such a mess of Blackwater's domain?" "Don't worry about it," Hua Cheng said. "He owes me money. Fight however you wish." Shilian could only make a confused noise in response. Suddenly someone pointed ahead. What is it doing?" Shilian turned to look, and his heart jolted when he saw. The fiery demonic fortress that was once the heavenly capital was shaking in the sky, and a cacophony of cracking and snapping noises filled the air. Countless bits of flaming rubble rolled and tumbled into the water as the body of the fortress ponderously turned around. The many divine palaces built upon the ground of the heavenly capital were moving and shifting. At first laid out flat, They were now realigning themselves vertically and dividing into sections. What was once a perfect fortress was breaking into 7 or 8 large pieces. Have we defeated it? Is it falling apart? A heavenly official wondered. How could it be that easy? Shilian said. This is probably... Before he could finish, the broken pieces of the fortress's body began to rapidly reconstruct themselves, filling the air with the sound of stone grinding against stone. As the heavenly officials watched, their eyes grew larger and larger. Some were even left with their mouths hanging wide open. The fiery demonic fortress wasn't falling apart. It had broken into pieces to build itself anew. After reconstruction, it had become a fiery giant. The giant was roused from its slumber and stood tall in the air, its body almost entirely covered in shimmering golden palaces, as if it was wearing sturdy, solid armor. It had replaced the heavenly capital and was now facing off against Shilian's giant divine statue. But face to face, Shilian... it's a mech fight. But face to face, Shilian's statue seemed delicate and small, even a little pitiful, like a child standing against an adult. The giant divine statue could easily be described as colossal, but the fiery giant dominated both heaven and earth. It was bigger by 5 or 6 times at least. It looked as though it could crush a fortress underfoot with a single step. It was so terrifying it made one's hair stand on end. After its rebirth was entirely complete, the fiery giant slowly turned its head. A torrent of flame blew from its mouth and swept towards the 4 bone dragons. The wall of flame cut through the volley of water guns, and the 4 bone dragons dove back beneath the waves when they realized that things were going downhill. As for the giant, it landed upon the surface of the sea and advanced towards the huge divine statue, walking steadily upon the water as if it were land. The Palace of Divine Might sat like a crown atop the giant's head, and Junwu radiated an impressive aura from where he was enthroned within. Its presence was suffocating, and the heavenly officials cried out to Shilian, "Your Highness, don't just stand there. Hurry and run away. We're dying here." "We can't win. There's no way we can win. Wake up, Your Highness. It's 1,000,000 times bigger than you." However, Shilian responded, "We can't keep running away. Even if we can't win, running won't work much longer." Although the heavenly officials were first taken aback, it soon dawned on them. Indeed, they couldn't keep running. On the off chance Hua Cheng stopped providing spiritual power, the divine statue could not fly for long with their combined power alone. They would be exhausted far too quickly by the strain. In the end, they had to find somewhere to stand and fight. And rather than luring the fiery giant somewhere populated, why not just take care of things here? There was not a single soul to be seen amidst the waves of the black water demon lair, so no mortals would be dragged into the fray. Such considerations were proper for a heavenly official to have, but who wouldn't be terrified when facing off against such a menacing fiery giant with an endless abyss of pitch-black water below them? Still, no one wanted to be the first to demand that Shilian quickly take them somewhere with more people around. Thus, Shilian said, "Everyone hang on tight. Careful not to fall off. Everything sinks in the Blackwater Demon Lair." The fiery giant lunged forward and reached out to grab the much smaller divine statue. As Shilian dodged and leapt with great agility and vigor, the heavenly officials holding on to the divine statue were flung around, flipping and toppling, sometimes rising, sometimes falling. It was both extremely distressing and extremely thrilling, and the sound of their screams traveling up and down with the divine statue. Very few martial gods had ever experienced a battle like this. Never mind that most of the officials present weren't martial gods, and usually sat in their palaces all day. Shilian heard Xuanyi Zhen yell, "You don't have a weapon! You need a weapon!" The heavenly officials finally couldn't hold back any longer. "Yeah, Your Highness! It's too hard to win if you don't have a weapon!" "I'm trying to think of what I can use," Shilian shouted back. Royer very excitedly twisted its body into loops and snuggled up to his cheek, but Shilian pushed it away. "Thank you, but you won't do. You're too small." Hua Cheng spoke up. "If you need a weapon, there are options at hand. Use this for now." Shilian heard another round of shrieking howls. The 4 bone dragons that dove beneath the sea to evade the fiery giant's flames poked their heads out again, surrounding the giant divine statue. The heavenly officials couldn't help but be alarmed. What do they want? But they hadn't surrounded them to launch an attack. Shilian watched as each dragon bit onto the tail of the next, and soon the 4 long bone dragons had linked themselves together to form a single extremely long bone dragon.
Oh.
Let me drink. So now the bone dragons are doing the fucking thing that the guys did before.
They're fucking Voltroning.
Bone dragon Voltron. Hushwin's pets. The linked bone dragon leapt into the air and came flying over. Without thinking, Shilian raised his hand, and the giant divine statue caught it. This is... Shilian murmured in wonder. It was a bone dragon whip. He could control it just like he controlled Royer, and it'd work just fine. With a flick of his hand, the bone dragon whip hurtled straight for the fiery giant's head. The fiery giant raised its hand and caught the end, but the bone dragon whip snapped itself in half, and the divine statue simply took another step forward, with shortened whip in hand, and struck at the divine giant's head once more. It seemed that the fiery giant had taken a painful hit, as it loosened its grip on the piece of bone dragon it had caught, which slithered back and relinked with the rest in Shilian's hand. The bone dragon whip was exceedingly flexible, and could break apart and reattach, sometimes break in half, sometimes half and then half again. It was a difficult weapon to defend against, especially coupled with the giant divine statue's incredible agility. The whirling winds had thoroughly tangled the heavenly officials' hair and blown their sleeves into their faces, but they still provided commentary. I can't believe His Highness can move like that. I've only ever seen him collect junk. I can't believe he really does come from a martial god background. You can skip the I can't believe at the beginning of your sentences, the state preceptor said. And there's no need to put so much emphasis on the junk collection either. Shilian laughed awkwardly. The incredibly long bone dragon whip was like a steel chain blanched white, and the bones crackled as it tangled their opponent. The fiery demonic giant's body began to fall, and the heavenly official snapped back to attention. Quick, quick, quick! Pull it into the sea! Below the mid-air battlefield lurked the Blackwater demon lair, the water where everything sinks. The giant divine statue gripped the bone dragon whip, and Shilian gritted his teeth as he exerted more force. Come on down! Sure enough, the fiery demonic giant sank a bit further. All the heavenly officials quickly pressed their hands and feet to the giant divine statue to transfer spiritual power again, chanting as they did, Sink! Sink! Hurry and sink! As he listened to the chorus of voices shouting, Sink! At Junwu, Shilian felt a subtle chill shake his heart. Sitting atop the giant divine statue, he looked at the palace of divine might. Although he couldn't see the expression of the one enthroned within, he could somehow sense that Junwu was sneering at them. The fiery demonic giant was gradually dragged to the abyssal depths, but the flames of its body still burned. They were not extinguished even after it entered the water. The red light continued to glow from the blackness of the deep sea, only fading as the bone dragons dragged it deeper and deeper. The heavenly official sighed in relief, but Shilian didn't dare relax completely. For a while, silence fell. Abruptly, Shilian remembered that Pei Ming hadn't answered his call, nor had he heard the voices of Banyue or the others. They had probably been dragged into the sea with the giant. Shilian feared the worst for them. Suddenly, the surface of the sea began to roil and bubble. As it spread outward, waves surged, and white smoke began to rise. The seawater was boiling. Oh, crap, Shilian thought. Just as he was about to fly upward, a hand broke through the waters and grabbed the giant divine statue's ankle, yanking it down. Shilian felt the violent jolt and looked down to see the fiery demonic giant had dragged itself from the depths once more. Its chest had already emerged, dripping with water. Most of the flames on its body had been extinguished, but were now blazing back to life. Although its body was still tangled in the bone dragon whip, the linked dragons could clearly no longer subdue it. Junwu's laughter echoed throughout the endless sea. It wasn't wild, crowing, cackling, nor was it mocking. but it was all the more chilling for its indescribability. Half of the giant divine statue's body had been dragged into the boiling water, and the heavenly officials hanging on the near bottom had to quickly climb higher. Even at the very top of the giant divine statue, Shilian could feel the suffocating steam and heat. It was so hot that sweat rolled from his forehead and down his back. If they were fully pulled into the sea, they would be cooked from toe to head. This wouldn't do. He needed a sword. No other weapon could release his full potential. Suddenly, he heard the state preceptor's voice. Fluffy child, what are you doing? You don't just toss a corpse at me. Wait, where are you going? Shilian was alarmed to hear that. Still maintaining the hand seal, he shouted downward. Qi Ying? There was no response, yet he saw a figure dash along the giant divine statue's leg, then down the fiery demonic giant's arm and straight for its head. Qi Ying, come back! Shilian shouted. However, voices could no longer reach Xuan Yizhen. He was discovered the moment he dashed into the giant's arm, and its other hand descended like it was a slapping at a mosquito on its limb. It was incredibly fast and accurate and hit its target head-on with a resounding noise. Smack! Many of the heavenly officials screamed in alarm, but when they looked again, Xuan Yizhen was still running. The slap had been accurate indeed, but he had dodged into a crevice between the giant's fingers, and escaped the tragic fate of becoming a bloody smear of flesh. Xuan Yizhen leapt over the fingers and continued to run, and the giant continued to slap. He only barely dodged the first and second slap, and it was clear he might not be so lucky when the third came. He could end up crushed into a bloody pulp. However, Xuan Yizhen had already reached his destination before the third slap hit. He jumped inside the skull of one of the bone dragons that was tangling the fiery demonic giant. The ghost fire lanterns inside the bone dragon's eye sockets flashed with an explosion of light the moment he leapt in. Its whole body radiated a white glow. It raised its head and gave a long howl as its body wrapped even tighter around the fiery giant. Shilian could hear the heavy sound of boulders grinding together. As it was crushed tighter and tighter, the fiery demonic giant loosened its grip and finally released the divine statue's ankle. Once free, Shilian instantly flew higher and reached out a hand. Qi Ying, come up here quickly! Don't keep tangling with it! Not only did Xuan Yizhen not let go, he roared and used all of his strength to yank the linked bone dragon whip even tighter as he rode it. Countless bits of rubble and debris fell into the sea, and the fiery demonic giant lost its patience. It hauled itself out of the water completely, and the flames of war roared anew from within the palace of divine might to spread and burn across its body. The bone dragon, firmly wrapped around its body, was submerged in the sea of fire, along with Xuan Yizhen. Qi Ying! Shilian cried. He leaned forward to charge the fiery giant and punched the linked bone dragon whip apart. Blanched, burning bone joints tumbled into the sea. Just as Shilian was about to catch the bone dragon skull with Xuan Yizhen inside, the fiery giant slapped the skull and sent it flying kilometers away. The giant divine statue didn't manage to seize it in time before it was sent soaring off into the distance. And Xuan Yizhen would probably have already fallen into the sea with the linked bone dragon whip, no matter how quickly they rushed over. And right now, the sea was literally boiling, the water where everything cooks. At the last very second, a giant white bonefish leapt out of the water and caught the bone dragon's head. Then, like a fish that had escaped the net, it whipped its tail and swam far, far away. Although this had given Shilian a fright, there was no actual danger, and he sighed in relief as he rushed over to see. The flames in the bone dragon's eye sockets had gone out after breaking away from the giant, but the teeth inside its skull were still chattering, and its mouth opened and closed like it was panting harshly. Xuan Yizhen was sprawled inside its jaw, roasted and charred completely black. Perhaps it was because of the fire, but his hair seemed even curlier than usual. Thankfully, the bone dragon skull had acted as a protective shield. He wasn't burnt too badly. Given time and quiet care, he would heal from this. After all, Xuan Yizhen was resilient. The four bone dragons' condition was worse. Scorched and battered, their bodies were scattered all over the surface of the sea, some pieces still burning even now. Shillian glanced at them and couldn't help but feel another wave of embarrassment. We destroyed the guards of Blackwater's abode. Is this really okay? Hwa-Chunk smiled. Don't worry, it's fine. Just how much money does he owe you? Shillian wondered. Gawking at Xuan Yizhen's tragic state, the heavenly officials murmured amongst themselves. I can't believe His Highness Qi Ying. So very brave to stand tall in the face of danger and save everyone. Shillian recalled all the scorn and rejection Xuan Yizhen had suffered in the upper court, and shook his head, thinking, he didn't go out there to save everyone. Far in the distance behind them, they heard a familiar crackling sound. When they looked back, the giant's body was completely enveloped in raging fire. It didn't charge at them to attack. Instead, it flew up into the sky and through the clouds. Then it vanished, just like that. Despite their bewilderment, the heavenly officials rejoiced that they'd survived this calamity. Has he given up on attacking us? But Shillian had a bad feeling about this. Sunlong, how did he just vanish like that? He activated a teleportation array, Hwa-Chunk answered. Where did he go? Hwa-Chunk's gaze was solemn. The royal capital, which was where Shi Qingxuan was guarding the human array. That's the end of that. Not gonna do more because I'll kill my voice.
Stressed. Dude,
Xuan Yizhen!
My Shayla!
My Shayla! And also just killing Hua-Chuan's pets.
Yeah. Just,
and Hua-Chunk's just like, it's fine, he owes me money.
He's crazy.
Those are his dogs. You're hurting his
Heshwan is literally
his
gonna be
fish. Just be like, come on, man. Come on, man. What did you do,
Come on,
man?
Oh my god.
And Hwa-Chunk is just like, this is what you get for involving Guga in your fucking shit.
Your problems.
Yeah. I like that one of the bonefish went and saved Xuan Yizhen. That was nice of it.
Yeah. Do you want to see?
Yes, I do want to see. Oh, I have to send the art. Send the art that I took a picture of.
So, this is
nice.
that
That's cute.
Yeah, very cute. Meowry.
Meowry. Here's the kiss, and here's the flames.
Take the kiss. Stop, he's blushing.
Launching Joe is just like,
Whoa.
what are you doing back there?
Yeah, the flames is badass as fuck.
It's really cool. You don't see that